All righty, everybody. This is Casey Lewis with the Pest Control Marketing Domination podcast. We're going to be talking to Chris Moreschi of GorillaDesk today. So just give me a moment here and we'll be right back with Chris.
You own a pest control company, and smart, experienced knowledge is hard to find. Oh, yes, you've listened to all the BS and hyperbole, but now it's time to listen to the real experts. Welcome to the Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast interview series. This is the smart place to find out how you can become a smart and informed pest control business owner on your path to total market domination. Here's your host, Casey Lewis.
All right, everybody, and welcome to another show. My name's Casey Lewis, as I said just a moment ago, and today we're going to be talking with Chris Moreschi, who is the CEO of GorillaDesk. I'm pretty excited to talk to Chris. He's the first one in our interview series that we're going to talk to about pest control software. And as we all know, there's a lot going on with pest control software right now. But Chris was born into a pest control business that was started by his dad in 1986. And that means a lot to me. You guys know how I feel about being true to the pest control family. Chris is a family guy. GorillaDesk was born out of Chris's mission to transform that family business. And by creating the GorillaDesk software, Chris was able to move a mid-sized family-owned pest control business into a large seven-figure success. So that I think says a lot. I'm going to bring Chris in here in a second, let him tell you a little bit more. We can ask questions. We are live. I'll be bringing up questions to Chris as we go. But today, GorillaDesk serves over 3,300 pest control companies worldwide. I think that says a lot about Chris and the success of his company. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Chris in here. I'm going to make sure I've got my stage all set up. Hi, Chris. How are you today?
Hey, Casey. Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I think I can take my headphones off now. I've got it on my inside audio. This is, Chris, this is our first episode where we're going to go live to multi-platform. So I hope everything works out as planned. But I think if you've ever heard our podcast, and I am a little bit hard on software, and I'll tell you why. So my background goes and sort of precedes all of the digital marketing. I ran AT&T's Yellow Pages sales division nationwide once upon a time. And one of the things that I like to say when we are talking to our audience about software is the fact that you want your software to do what you want more than you necessarily want to do what your software is telling you what to do. And I'd love to hear your take on it. So, Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about GorillaDesk, and this is your show, man.
Sure. I mean, you got it right. My dad started his company in pest control in 1986. He was a forklift operator with Publix and really wanted to create a better life and spend more time with me during the day because he was working nights as a forklift operator. So he put himself through a 2-year degree, a pest control technology degree that they offered at Broward Community College here in South Florida. And he ended up getting licensed in 3 categories when he tested all at the same time. He really wanted it. He put himself through a 2-year degree in a year and a half. So, my dad was a go-getter on wanting to build his pest control company. So I remember growing up since I was 5 years old, riding with him in the truck, eventually doing services throughout high school, trying to make my way in the household. That I would go out, run services, and do whatever they needed me to do. And yeah, I know the family dynamic. I know how it works to run a business that goes from all paper, right, at first, and basically index cards the way that they started, and not being that technical or savvy. They never went to college themselves. So I needed to kind of come in later on and see if I could really transform the situation, which I was able to do. I went off to college for studying English. Didn't really think I'd end up back in the family business, but I ended up starting my first company out of college because I'm kind of the unemployable entrepreneur. I like to not be told what to do and do my own thing. So I started my own. Yeah, I started the e-commerce site, which kind of cut my teeth on software, and then I saw all the opportunity with the software knowledge that I gained, looking at my business, my family business, it became really obvious. That I can come in and create an easy to use tool on the invoicing, scheduling, and routing side. That's kind of like the hub of everything that we need, and make that a lot easier for them and get them off of the paper process. So I'd actually adopted a product for them, which was okay, but it wasn't cloud-based. It was just desktop-based. So while I was working with the desktop-based product, I thought of how I would want to create it for myself working in the field and how I can streamline, my family in the office. So I did that for 7 years. I operated the family business. And then for the last 10 years, I've been focused on GorillaDesk full time. So I transitioned out of the family business 10 years ago, and I handed it over to my younger brother. And since then, I've just been focused on the software. And now actually there's 3,500 companies because we're onboarding 25 companies every single week. Wow. And so we're coming on about 13% or so of the market and pest control market. Dominating SMB, really moving strong into mid-market, coming out with a lot of features now for mid-market companies that are branch managed.
Well, that sounds great to me. And I'll tell you, so our company as sort of a mission has wanted to stay mid-market focused, mid-sized business focused. I think a lot of the reason for that is I really had a hard on for AT&T when the yellow pages just sort of collapsed. They really didn't figure that out. And they left a lot of mid-sized businesses nationwide just hanging. And pest control, it's why we're there. You can bet your booty that there was a lot of pest control companies that when they had to make that move into digital marketing and didn't have that background and that wherewithal, it was very, very difficult. And I wonder with your software, which is getting some real good word on the street, by the way, compared to what some of the other guys are really getting beat up right now as they sort of seem to be moving towards enterprise only sort of empathy. But I wonder, if you could, being that your parents were in there, they didn't have a big software background or technical background. And as you went into creating and building GorillaDesk, did you take that into consideration, the users of the product, maybe not being tech savvy, but still being able to get the value out of the product to use it towards growing the business?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the holy grail of all software where it starts. And everybody's in the room and we got the next best product and they think it's the easy button for this.
Right.
And everybody wants to make it the easy button for this. And making and keeping something very easy and intuitive are difficult things when you're trying to expand product. But, we have a real passion and it's kind of a core competency on the product side to keep it really easy, intuitive. And I think it's because I'm always grounded to those same roots, those same people, just like my mom and dad, my brother, and I know who they are. I interact with them every day. So it's very close to me whenever I'm looking through the lens of adding anything new to the product or, how the user flow should be. It should really be staying consistently easy to use. There's a lot of good philosophy around that because you can actually expand faster, I believe, when you have products that are intuitive and you set in a new admin or scheduler, you set in a new technician, they should feel comfortable within days, not weeks, within a day. If they've repeated that process or just even a couple weeks of doing the scheduling should really be enough for anyone to understand the way that the system works without having to sit and be overly trained through something that would be complex. It needs to feel like they've just experienced something that they were very anxious and fearful of, but it became an easy process and all that got lifted off their shoulder. That's the way they need to feel because everybody comes into it with a certain fear and anxiousness on learning anything new, which is understandable. But the way that the software needs to introduce itself and the team behind the software needs to lift off that anxiety, and we do that really well by having an easy to use product and by having the support team there with them through chat, through phone, through the ability to book a training call whenever they want included, in that whole process, they get that whole sense of ease and relief. Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I apologize as I'm moving over here. I'm looking at chat as I'm talking to you, and I can bring up any chats. So if I get any good questions, I'll pass them on to you. But let me I'll tell you, Chris, sort of what I'd like to ask in terms of your opinion as somebody that's really at the top of the game in the pest control marketing space, or software space. One of the things that happens to us all of the time is when we are onboarding a new client, we're working with them. One of the things we want to do is help them segment their contact database, for example. Just get it figured out. How many recurring do we have? How many one shots? How many this? How many that? And almost, I would say 80% of the time, which is a lot, they will find that they're frustrated with their software. They're not even quite sure why they bought it. They don't think they really know how to use it. They're spending a lot of money for it. And they feel like it's dictating to them how they need to run their business, and they get frustrated. And so they basically are paying money for software. They're not really using it or utilizing all of the things that it can do for them. And so one of the things I put this on that prep sheet I sent over to you, I wanted to see if you could really explain to the audience, if you're just thinking about pest control software, or maybe you have software and you hate it and you're fearful of that migration from point A to point B, what would you say are the best ways and the steps to take for a pest control owner or manager out there when they're going to look at a new pest control software platform, or maybe they're looking to move away from one they just don't like?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I have like 5 points that I put together, but there is quite a bit to think about. And it depends on where you are, how long you've been operating, and what type of certain processes you've been operating a certain way. The smaller the company, the easier it is for a transition, I'd say, just from a process standpoint. Because, on one hand, when we have companies that have worked a certain way, they're going through and they have a checklist. Here's the checklist we have to meet for all the parties involved to feel like we're going to be comfortable when we come on board. And we really want to see that and feel comfortable with that. Or if not, show us the way that you do it so that then we can decide if that's going to feel right. So what you're bringing up is a very valid point. As they become larger companies, it becomes more of we've got to make sure all these things are there for all the parties. So it does become easier, I'd say. We make the transition very easy. You just have a lot more parties involved later on. So I'll give you some of the things that I think that you should be thinking about. One of the things to think about is when they're trying to move away from one product, what are the reasons why? It's usually that, one, the product isn't cloud-based. If a product is not cloud-based anymore, like in this day and age, to have the freedom of it being cloud-based, and that means, right, you can access it through the internet, through any device, anywhere, anytime. When it's not cloud-based and it's just on one computer or a few computers in the office, and that's very restrictive. Why is it restrictive? Because of communication, right? All business is driven through communication, and if we can't have that instant live communication, we're losing a lot of valuable time and what we could be doing in the office when that communication is coming in real time, right? Guys are completing jobs or communicating to the client in real time. So if there's a disconnect and we're not cloud-based, it's obvious that people are seeing now, if I'm not cloud-based, I'm basically being left behind. So the very first thing to ask ourselves is, when we're looking at software, is this software up to the times? Is it forward thinking? Are they progressing? Are they doing releases where they've done transitions and have a tenure of doing transitions from being one version to another version, and seeing that people have successfully liked the way that they deploy and continue to deploy and innovate, right? Because what happens and why people are moving from a lot of product is that they never innovated from going from a non-cloud product to a cloud product. And this is many, many years later now that they've had the opportunity to do it, but for whatever reason, they haven't done it. So, right, where are the companies that are forward thinking that are going to do the things that you think you may want to be doing? What's happening, Casey, is a lot of these companies that are getting bought, they're getting bought by, investment firms, and then the products themselves get shelved.
No, I know exactly what you mean by that, because I mean, I can even tell you with one company, it was so bad that I was working with, and they had a server-based old product, and I won't name any names, but they'd been using this company for 20 years, and they were really doing it almost exclusively because this company had an old product that was able to work with some of the California-based termite issues and problems that pest control software faces. But when it came time they wanted to upgrade to one of the more modern cloud-based pest control software platforms, this guy really would not give them their data, and then wanted to start to tell them they're going to have to pay thousands of dollars for him to write a custom code to download the data to allow them to upload it to the new platform. I actually ended up driving all the way to Sunnyvale, California, to sit down and talk to this guy and plead for this customer that, look, don't take it so personally. They just want to get on a more technically advanced software they can use with their technicians, and they can use moving forward. They've given you 20 good years. But when you talk about stuff like that, it's stuff like that I deal with that I think really gets people afraid to do anything. And when I'm working with GorillaDesk, if I'm going to be an old, maybe like your dad's company before you came along. So I've been there since the 80s. I've got 40,000 contacts. Nothing's organized. Nobody really knows what the fields and properties are. But I want to make that move. I want to now go from, using the old QuickBooks Pro paper product to now I want to use the online product. How do I work with GorillaDesk? Can you tell me, I mean, just in terms of being friendly and helpful, and will you work with them through that process?
Yeah, I mean, we've made everything really on the friendly side of things, so it goes all the way from, there's no contracts, with GorillaDesk. It's a month-to-month option or an annual pay option. So we're giving people a free trial. So you guys are seeing and experiencing what you're going to be able to get and what you're getting yourself into before you even have to buy it. And that's a real, the front end of the sale is much more friendly. We want to make sure that it's a fit for you, before there's no forceful sales approach or nature. And that means a lot, because there are products that you are sold into where you don't get to experience them or see them ahead of time. Right. And then they're definitely not fitting or meeting the need of the criteria. And then you feel like you were just kind of duped into buying something that, may not actually work for you.
No, sorry. Go ahead. No, you exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then from there, we transition 25 companies every single week from other various products. We've been doing it for many years. So we know what to already look for as preventative pitfalls on how to do a proper transition. So we show you how our import file ends up looking. We end up explaining to you, here's all the data that we can bring in. And, here's the data that you should bring in for these various reasons. So we kind of consult on how the data should be brought in. We even go as far as helping you pull the data from the current system, the way that it should be pulled, and populating that spreadsheet until we get the thumbs up from you that, hey, let's go ahead and do the import. So we do it fully white glove if you want us to help you with the whole process on import. And then we end up importing as well all the jobs on the schedules with all their billing frequencies as well. What I've never seen go well is transferring credit cards from one merchant provider to another. That's not something we directly are in the middle of, but GorillaDesk creates tools. So when you're firing off first payment requests or online payment requests from clients, that you can get cards on file, and you can also save on cards from file from the desktop as well as the technicians from the mobile application. So we try to make it really friendly to alleviate that process. But yeah, we basically do everything. And then from there, they get 6 weeks of onboarding and health checks. So our team will call to do either a directed training on what they should be working next, or advising on anything that they may be missing in the account or should be focused on as a next step. And with their subscription at no additional cost, we do the onboarding, we do the import, we provide unlimited training for them and anyone on their team, where they could book 30-minute trainings to get trained on any part of the product. And another big thing is we offer all those same trainings in a full video library on our YouTube channel as well as our website, and make all that public. So you or any of your team can take there's 27 different videos, 7 of which do basic training, 3 of which do advanced. And then there's a module on each kind of function specifically if you wanted to dive into that video specifically. So there's a total of 27 videos. We recommend our clients watch the section before we end up going into that training session, because then it becomes quite a bit more helpful. They can go over specific questions that they might have. But yeah, I mean, we try to bake all that in because we know that that's what's important for them to succeed.
I think the way you're explaining it is great. I mean, what's cool is we're here right now talking to Chris Moreschi. You're the CEO of GorillaDesk. So we're not talking to some sales rep that's then going to pass us off necessarily to an onboarding team. Not that there's anything wrong with that process. I get it. We have to have salespeople out in the field. They're working to confirm the sale. That's what their vested interest is. They want to sell you the product. And then you make that move and transition into onboarding, however that works. But the smoother that transition, I think, the better. So much because, again, I think, and I say this, I guess I should be careful the way I say this because it's not meant to be condescending at all. But I think to a large extent, a lot of pest control owners and even managers, GMs, that kind of thing, they're not necessarily really tech savvy. Some may be. That may, there are some that are. But when you're not, if you're not careful, you can kind of be taken advantage of with these demos. Oh, it'll do everything. Oh, yeah, it does that. Oh, this is easy. That's easy. And in reality, getting from that point of plugging it in to changing all of the infrastructure in your organization and your workflows to complement the tasks you want to use the software to enhance, I think is somewhere where things get lost, and then people get disappointed. So I'm really glad to hear that, because I think that for our customers, at least, that experience of being able to move from semi-automation or no automation to real full automation is a big step, and it's an exciting one. But I think oftentimes they don't realize how complicated it may be, and they need a partner. They need someone that's there after the sale. So I'm advocating a little bit while I'm talking here, but I really love that about what I'm hearing from you, because again, your background with your parents being involved and so forth, I hope that gives it a little bit more sense to, that's what we want to happen, is a smooth transition into either I hate the software I'm using, I don't have any software I can really use, to now I'm humming and we're able to build routes easily. We're able to do our billing easily. We're able to get our techs online. How do the techs interact with the software when they're in the field?
Yeah, so they can access the app from both a tablet or a phone, and we have a true native Android and iOS applications. So, there's other applications which will say, you got to log in through our web app that we offer online to use it on the mobile app. No, we have true native applications. And so there's a specific technician view when you have technician permissions set up for that technician, where it's basically they can access the schedule and the clients that are assigned to them and the jobs that are assigned to them on their calendar for the day. And they go through and work, their day just like, most applications.
No, that's great. One of the things, so I look at, a lot of these software, there's forums out there, and a lot of them just become a place where everybody's bitching because they don't know how to use the software. But you can find things in there that come up quite a bit that make you think, okay, One of the things I've seen a lot, I don't know how, is particularly in rural areas where they're not able to connect um, while they're in the field all the time. And the
Mhm.
question that had become, I've seen in these forums, is if I update whatever I'm doing on the app on my phone, but I'm not connected, when I get connected, will it reconnect and upload, download, or how does that process work?
Yeah, so with GorillaDesk, when before you leave for the day, are basically syncing the whole week's worth of work behind the scenes. So all you have to do is make sure that your phone, you open GorillaDesk before you leave for the day. So you have a Wi-Fi connection at that moment. It's pulling all the most recent data for the day, before you were to leave and have no connection. So at that moment, it's pulling all the week's data for you already in the background so that if you were to go into an area where you lose connection, you could still work through the job. Now, the only limited functionality that you have when you're kind of offline is, accepting payments
Right.
or anything like kind of payment related or accepting cards or merchant related. Um, and so, there's a good amount of features, but we still have, maybe the most important features, taking your notes, upgrading the invoice, modifying your materials, those things that are most critical, we allow you to do them, and then they end up getting synced when you have a connection again. But there are certain things still that aren't fully functional, but aren't mission critical, and for offline. But yeah, it is a concern. The main thing to know, with our app is, when we tell everybody, is open the app before you're leaving for the day, and you've got a fresh sync going on in case you were to,
Right.
lose connection right away.
Gotcha. And then, so I don't want to necessarily name any other software companies or get too far into that, but I would like, we've had some varying um, interactions with some of the pest control software companies through the years. Some have been really good, some have been okay, but they've really changed lately with a lot of the mergers and what appears to be a movement more towards full enterprise type um, strategy. Where do you, if you could just maybe do a little commercial for the audience here, where do you think Gorilla Desk fits, and what who are they looking for, and who do they solve the most problems for? Where are they the best fit in the marketplace?
Yeah, GorillaDesk really serves from SMB up to mid market. I'd say we have companies with maybe up to 7 branches, 150 plus users. So I mean, and we're really focused on serving those clients and listening to them most as far as building out the needs that they need. That's where we're in as far as market right now, and trying to build in those different branch management type reports and things that are very specific to branch management. So, I mean, we've graduated from SMB in the mid market pretty strong over the last few years. Anybody SMB, I'd say GorillaDesk is definitely, get started with GorillaDesk. It's going to be so easy for you to be, a lot of people say they wish they started sooner, of course. So, yeah, I mean, we're really a fit for SMB. For those that are in strong on branch management, we're really a fit for. Once we end up going to, we even have some even larger companies are looking to use us for managing full branches and management in other countries, like, so GorillaDesk doesn't ever see itself becoming full enterprise, because once you do, you're having to adopt many, many features such that become very specific.
Right.
So, I
Well,
really don't know what would prevent us from going there specifically. And all the product that we end up adopting has to be generally good enough for the entire community whilst keeping the ease of use there and keeping it all simple. So, that's kind of where we're suited best.
well,
And
and
that's
I
where the
think
majority of the clients are, Casey,
no, it's you're sort of preaching to the choir here. I'm with you. I tell you, Chris, because that's where we decided to stay as well, as we watched even some of the more well-known marketing agency, pest control marketing agencies kind of get sucked into this whole enterprise thing. And you're right, it's really represents a small portion of the overall pest control community. That SMB, that mid market, is where it's at. So that's where we've really tried to stay very cognizant of what that market wants and needs, and being able to help them to either position themselves to stay long term and give it to the kids or do what they're going to do, or if they're going to end up being purchased, to put themselves in a position to get the best dollar value they can through acquiring a good pot of recurring revenue and so forth. Now, did I get it right? Do you have a podcast as well?
No, I don't.
You don't. Okay. So that was, I got a little confused when I talked to Luana. I think we were talking about that, the interview that you may have done on, I think it's called the Podcast Millionaire. And,
Yeah.
but what would you like in terms of just passing along, Chris, some of your entrepreneurial knowledge or your experience dealing in the pest control world? What we deal with, what our audience deals with a lot, is being able to grow their business efficiently and effectively over time, and be able to scale not quite so quick as maybe some of the bigger companies, but I'm talking about a $2 to $5 million pest control company. It's probably got between 5 and 10 technicians that really wants to grow their routes one at a time and do it smart, if you will. Can you give them some advice based on even more than your GorillaDesk background, but generally speaking, what you think you see that they should do as they introduce software, automation, technology? How far should they go? How far is too far? And if you could give just a little bit of advice to some of the listeners.
Yeah, that's hard to do. There's a lot of good stuff that you should be thinking about. And what I find is companies that get around that size, their culture either becomes a benefit or it ends up being a detriment. What can happen, which you don't want to happen, is that you end up getting to that size and then you end up firing half and or more of the team because you start learning how important it is alignment and core values are to keep a ship moving healthily in the right direction, full steam, ideally. So, when we start that question, I really think about integrity being a framework for success in your business. And people think about integrity as a core value, and it's a good core value, but it's also, to me, if you were to put your core values underneath the core value foundation, will always be integrity. And without integrity, nothing works. You got to think of it like a car engine, right? If one mechanical piece is out of integrity, the engine's not going to be doing too well. So what is integrity? And that becomes a gray area where people don't really know how to judge or measure or to communicate well enough that this is what integrity means as an organization, and this is how we abide by integrity. So, a framework that I was shown and adopted that really helped me kind of change the way I was able to operate as an operator and grow my company is knowing that, integrity is about being whole and complete in the way that you communicate with your clients, with your customers, with your team, and anything and we are all human and we go out of integrity, right, Casey? It's natural to go out of integrity, but going back in integrity and making a framework where we make integrity something that's very important as a muscle that we build as a company together. Meaning that when there are things that need to be said, we're saying them so that we can be in integrity and move through things and get things done in a healthy manner. So, that comes with adopting processes and being able to hire and coach people, right? And a lot of the hiring, coaching, and firing that you do in your company should be based on a set of core values with the basis of integrity. That's number one. That's like part one. So then there's everything else to think about, but that's the team part. Then you have, making sure that your sales and your marketing engine can feed your sales engine, and that sales engine, everything has to have a process, whether it's starting with one bullet point to make a process as simple as possible. It's one bullet point and then another. So what is the process for marketing? What is the process for sales? What is the process? Everybody's got service. Everybody prides themselves on service, but we're thinking about service too much. If you're great at service, good. Go get great at the next part of the wheel. which is probably going to be your marketing lever. You don't need to know a lot, but you should know enough to be able to understand what are the mechanics and the levers, and getting a marketer to teach you, who will be on your side, as a confidant to help you understand marketing, is very important. I understand as an operator or owner, you should understand the growth levers of your company, and that's all areas of the funnel and how everything moves through, and from lead all the way down to sale, and what are the mechanisms that are driving traffic to each, and how that traffic, that's all nurtured through. So become a little bit knowledgeable on your marketing and continue to layer in that knowledge. Your sales motion, you've probably got service down. So making sales a process to where you can say, it takes us X amount of calls on average to land these deals in this time frame. Getting things down to numbers and the science of it, and knowing, instead of feeling your gut all the time. Like, as entrepreneurs, our gut's awesome. It's great for a lot of things. When it comes down to experimentation in our business, you got to know. It's better, way better to know, So yeah, I'm just trying to say, when you're strong somewhere, bring your attention to another area, which is going to be, marketing, sales. If support's down, that's really good. And continue training with your team. It all matters, so, and it all matters to be all worked within a core value framework for your company. Some people, and it's important. I'd say the last thing is the strongest and best companies, it usually ends up being the last thing we get to, making hiring a core competency.
Right.
It ends up being the last thing, especially for small and medium business. But the best businesses making hiring their core competency, because they've already got everything else dialed in. They know what works there. They know what they need to be doing there. And then, end game is the game of people, where it's how do you recruit, retain, and keep the best people on your team to outcompete, those who are other, just it's in that competitive line with you. So, I would say now, coming back around, put more time on people, make the infrastructure of core values and everything strong from the beginning, so you're not tearing it down later. Have a process in place where you're hiring good people all the time, and make that a core competency early. Don't avoid it. We all want to avoid it, or we'll go spend more time on service. We'll go spend more time on marketing. Go spend more time on sales. Telling you people is where you shouldn't be avoiding. You need to really press, be uncomfortable there, grow yourself, create process, and always be, they say always be hiring cliche, but it is true, because, if you're going to grow, it's like one, I'd say out of 200 people that are probably going to be a yes fit player with your core value in your team. You've got to see it. You got to get a lot of people through your funnel to get the right people that are going to be in line with that core value system that you're going to put in place. And that means consistently dripping people into that funnel, because you want to have good grade A talent in your funnel. And that's what's setting you apart from everybody else around you. Everybody else is going to be complaining, oh, I can't find good people, or, it's hard. Yes, it's hard. But the people that do it well, they got a process for it, and they're working it.
Well, and I think you hit on something we deal with. Absolutely the most difficult thing there is for us to deal with. And that's when you're a software company, and I know you do a lot more than that. We're a marketing agency, but generally speaking, we're going to be bringing change to the table in some form or fashion. And culturally, that can be so disruptive, especially if you're an older company and, mom, dad, uncle, everybody's working there. Now you're bringing in competency skill sets that people just don't have. And then the question becomes, as you're saying, having a funnel that's going to improve those skill sets continually and being prepared to change that culture along with it. I will tell you without question, it's the most difficult thing we face. We even talk about it here in our own company about being very careful how fast we bring change. Otherwise, the whole organization we've just started working with, they hate the marketing company, because every time these guys call, oh God, they're going to want to talk about all this stuff and do all this again. So I agree with you. I think it's that bringing that person, let's just say the owner, to that realization that I need to get from point A to point B. I want to do it. I need to do it. And then taking that time to self-evaluate, how far away from it am I really? And what is going to happen to move me from A to B? And then creating a plan in and of itself to do that, and do it in a way that it's going to be palatable to you, to your team, to your family, to everybody else. Anyway, I didn't mean to take up, you just sort of triggered me a little bit. That's the way I see it. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, the reality is based on what you just said, that people really don't make that decision until the pain that they're moving away from is hot enough.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, because I'll tell you why. And, you could have what you may desire 5 years earlier if you move, towards the pain, towards new pain, towards new pain. That's the thing is, how stagnant. It's what's the opportunity cost, of being a bit stagnant or complacent and comfortable. And that's the thing is we all hit those comfort ceilings and, can you break through? And I imagine what helps me is I imagine somebody behind me just giving me that shove. All right,
Yeah.
let's do it. It's kind of has to happen.
No, I agree. I agree. It does. And you're exactly right. And for those of you that are listening, don't wait until the house is burning down to go turn on the garden hose. This is where things are going. It's what you're going to have to do. Take your time, plan and prepare it right. Don't wait until you have to do it. And now you're scrambling to get things done that you should have taken your time with. Anyways, Chris, what I'll do then, we're almost ready to wrap it up here. I really appreciate your time. It's been helpful. I know I have a lot of people that are listening to our podcast that have been looking forward to this. I'll see how this whole live stream goes. I didn't get any questions that I thought were really relevant enough to go ahead and bring them up on here.
Sure.
We'll see. This is something we're starting to do new now as well. Will be these live streams to see. And then we'll also be putting this video and audio out on our podcast. And if you want it, I'll send you a copy. But before we go, can you, why don't you take a couple of minutes and just give us your final thoughts? Tell the people how they can get a hold of you or your team at GorillaDesk, how they would start that free trial if they want to give it a shot, and just go ahead and wrap it up.
Sure. So my email is at chris@gorilladesk.com, CHRIS, and send me a message anytime. There's a free trial sign up form right at GorillaDesk.com where you can get in for 14 days for free, and we can extend it if you need more time. Right at the top of the website, you can book a call, which will end up getting you in touch with one of our AEs here, and they'll answer any questions that you have, as well as give you a personalized demo for you or anybody on your team, walk through and get your questions answered. And I really appreciate you guys having me. I think something to consider is GorillaDesk is kind of really stretching its legs and moving forward and continued feature development. And there's a lot of good things ahead. There's sales enablement coming right inside GorillaDesk, as well as email and drip campaigns. So getting very much into marketing and sales heavy focused feature sets that traditionally other companies would have to use outside software for, like Pipedrive or different type of sales tools for, are now coming right inside GorillaDesk. And there's also voice over IP now. So phone system built by our team, managed by our team, that's native to our application, and it has great call clarity, and all the call recordings and transcriptions are inside your software. And so there's a lot that I'm excited about around taking transcriptions and call recordings and feeding that back to managers or anybody who's working on the company to easily see what types of conversations are happening, because nothing arises in your business without communication. So everything is basically more conversations that you can document. The more you can use tools to learn based on those conversations. I'm really excited about AI when it comes to voice and SMS bots, mainly for after hours, when we're not available or we're working, be able to answer the phone on our behalf. So I just wanted to say there's a great positive outlook on all the new types of development that can be coming to our industry that we'll be able to take advantage of.
Well, that sounds Yeah, that sounds great. And what we'll do, maybe we'll set up a webinar with one of your teams and we'll do sort of a live demo and do something a little bit further than just this interview. And then we can get some of this live streaming questions going to your team while they're demoing it. If that's anything you might be interested in,
Sure.
let me know and I'd be happy to set that up and work with your team.
All right. Awesome, Casey. Thank you.
All right, man. So that's it today for the Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast live interview with Chris Moreschi of GorillaDesk. Thank you, and we look forward to talking to you again.
You own a pest control company, and smart, experienced knowledge is hard to find. Listening to the Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast. If you own a pest control company anywhere in the country, by using our services, we will help you grow and prosper. Casey has 30 years in marketing and advertising under his belt. He managed and oversaw a sales force of 4,000 inside and outside sales reps, tasked to work with every pest control owner in the USA. Thanks for listening to the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Rhino Digital Media. Let us take your digital marketing to the next level. See you next time on the Pest Control Marketing Domination Podcast.